We're live. We're live. Screw it. We'll do it live. Here we are. And I am Max Redstone. And with me, I am, well, Anna does not begin to explain how I feel. I have the great and illustrious Hungry Boy.
Yeah. That's one way to put it, but you're very generous.
Okay, fine. We could put it another way. Gentlemen, this is Democracy Manifest.
I like that better, actually.
Okay.
So you start rolling. You were the man with a plan. You sent me the whole schematic.
I am pulling up the schematic right now just to make sure that I have it. Okay. So basically tonight I have a new drone music video for us. I don't know what I'm going to do next week, but we're going to figure that out next week. And I want to say hello to the chat. FKHC 2000. First of all, let's be linear. King Dolphin TV, Raymond and Sandra hit 1,000 subscribers tonight. So we want to I want to congratulate them on that. That's huge. It's huge.
Fantastic.
And Scotty out 37. No, Scotty R37 is here. The Peter Venkman fan site stopped by.
Hello, Scotty.
And hello, Suzanne. Hello. And the one, the only, the man who would make a Doctor Who villain by himself. Snortopupus.
Hello, Snorty.
Hello, Snorty. I made a video of him the other day with it was like one of those Blue Planet David Attenborough videos where it was a polar bear going after a seal, chasing him off of the pack. And actually, let me see if I can pull that up. Let's see. Oh, come on. I can do this. It's the 21st century. I can do this. Wait. Okay, here we go. We're going to present. And hopefully the sound comes through.
Dinner time. No, don't run away. That just makes it harder on both of us.
Yeah. That's hilarious.
Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, that was great.
Yep. That was my voiceover, if you couldn't tell. Okay. So tonight we're going to be discussing what made Time Lords Time Lords on Doctor Who Classic Canon. My thesis originally was that there were 2 episodes in Tom Baker, The Deadly Assassin and the Invasion of Time, and 2 episodes in Peter Davidson's The Arc of Infinity and the 5 Doctors. And those 4 episodes combined really gave you everything you needed to know about the Time Lords, about Gallifrey, about the ins, the outs, the goods, the bads. Of course, there were Colin Baker and Sylvester McCoy episodes, and then later on I was going to make a joke about, they renewed Doctor Who for a new season. It's just going to regenerate. It's going to be B-Girl Raygun.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Anyway, but before Time Lord the Time Lord canon went off the derech, as Jewish might say.
Yeah.
It was classic. It was timeless. It was stately, and we're going to talk about it. However, first, I want to present to you a video. As you know, I am a drone pilot, and every week I'm trying to do something new. So let us get the video. Let us get the videos. So I went to a, and if you know me and you know my art, I gravitate towards things that are just visually compelling and as a start. And when I can get like a panoramic camera, maybe that's what I'll do next week. But when I like to do things that are visually compelling, but also go for substance. So there's a bridge here in San Diego that just had really interesting lights set up, and I like to also fly through and around things. So here is my video, and I've been working on AI music. So I present to you. Oh, and also my drone, I name it Murphy because, well, Murphy's Law, things can go wrong, will go wrong. And anyway, here we go. Take a look. I hope you like it. Oh, wait a second. Okay.
I think that Murphy's Law is kind of like an anti-jinxing something. I mean, it's like
kind of, yeah. All right, let me bring it up this way. But it's like anything that can go wrong will go wrong. But if you have a safety mindset, then come on, I can do this. Bada boom. And all right. I really guess I'm gonna try and get video clips for next week, but
okay.
But and what of course I'm gonna do is screw it, we'll do it live. It's gonna be like the main thing. There we go. Well, what did you think?
I was very impressed. I would have
Thank
no
you.
idea how to do that. None.
Well, it I just passed my 100 hours, so quite carefully and with a bit of planning.
Mm.
And DJ Play Nice, how you doing? Thanks for stopping by.
Thank you.
And then the second half of that was SeaWorld.
Ah.
So it was.
I was at SeaWorld way, I mean, decades ago. Yeah. So that was, I thought I recognized that. That's cool.
Yeah.
And the choice of angles, it was very aesthetically pleasing. The way
Thank
you
you.
recognized it.
Yeah. There's actually this was actually a first for me because well, I've had collisions before, and I've downed the drone before. If you noticed in one of the clips, it nicked one of the pine bushes, but it recovered. So don't look at me. Don't look at me like that. I'm not a role model. So Doctor Who and classic Time Lord canon.
Yes.
Now, Hungry, one of the reasons I wanted you here, which is not just because you're a skilled artist and a raconteur, but you saw William Hartnell and especially Patrick Troughton, the first two Doctors.
Yes.
So tell us a bit about your experience with that. And I'm just, like I said, I'm going to talk about canon. You're going to talk about aesthetics, but
yes,
I want to hand it over for you for a bit.
Well, the aesthetics also kind of are intertwined with the canon, because the interesting thing, as we get the first hint of the Time Lords and Gallifrey without it being mentioned during the Hartnell era, and the show is really finding its feet during those initial years. And the Doctor intimates that he's centuries old. He doesn't really talk about it during the Hartnell years. He doesn't really mention where he comes from, not specifically, or the people he comes from. That happens with Patrick Troughton during his era. That's the first time we actually see the Time Lords, near the very end of the Troughton era, just before
the War Games.
Yeah, just before he gets, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on what kind of stories you like, he regenerates into the Third Doctor, John Pertwee, and they basically sabotage the TARDIS. So he's stuck on Earth, and as people who know the show know, that was because the BBC was both the higher ups were getting sick of all these space adventures, and also it was much cheaper to keep the Doctor trapped on Terra, our own planet. Now, personally, for me, that was a bit of a letdown. This is one of the reasons I love the Patrick Troughton adventures, because the show became a lot more organized, both in terms of storytelling, but also the visuals. And this is also during some of the greatest pop art years in Britain, and you see a lot of that influence visually on the show, not just in the costumes, but also in the backgrounds and the sets. And that's something that I wish I could have seen it as a kid or even as a teenager. I had to wait until I was in my 20s to see the Troughton-ettes, because they were, most of them were lost up until the 1980s and 1980s. And we've recovered a whole bunch of them. But the set of the Ice Warriors, and by the way, Troughton introduces the Ice Warriors.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the greatest monsters are actually introduced during the Troughton era. I particularly like the 1960s Ice Warriors, and the one, I think it's Barossa. Or no, that's not Barossa. Sorry, it's a different name. But the leader of the first Ice Warriors that we ever see is actually played by the big, huge, tall guy who was in the Carry On movies, believe it or not.
Okay.
So, a comedy actor who plays generally slapstick comedy ended up playing one of the most interesting and menacing, not necessarily horrifying, but menacing monsters and villains in all of Doctor Who. And just like the Daleks, they come up with new creatures because they can't use the Daleks every week. It's kind of like, DC creating the Riddler because they couldn't use the Joker every week.
Yeah.
And so the beauty of the difference in aesthetics of the Ice Warrior ship, their really strange body armor. I mean, we don't know if it's an exoskeleton. We don't know if it's armor. We know technically they're wearing a helmet. But the interior of their vessel, which is trapped within the ice, is fantastic. But also the technological set of the climate control scientists during the Ice Warriors. It's a magnificent, absolutely magnificent visual piece, and the aesthetics not just of the set, but the way that Patrick Troughton had really physically came into the role and really made it his own. The facial expressions, and then the tones of voice, the audio aesthetic during the Troughton era is amazing. We get some of the most interesting music in Doctor Who during those brief years in the mid 1960s up until the late 1960s. So you also had this other incredibly rich visual setup in Moonbase, which was one of the
Cybermen.
Yes, one of the early, but not that early Cyberman adventures, and that I think that was their design I liked best. But the Doctor was getting really messed with in the Moonbase. I mean, also Wheel in Space too, which again was another. Patrick Troughton tended to get messed around a lot whenever he had to deal with Cybermen. It's like the writers had to bug up their ass to mess with Troughton's Doctor every time those big silver buggers were on screen,
Yep.
And unfortunately, we pretty much lost almost all of the Patrick Troughton Dalek adventures.
Yeah, to tape junking. I mean,
yes.
Good Lord. I mean, seriously. I just, the BBC had this policy in the 1960s that magnetic tapes. Oh, I want to say goodnight to Snortopupus.
Nighty-o, Snorty.
And, they had it's like, well, magnetic tapes are quite expensive. And, well, you've already played it once. So,
they didn't believe in reruns at that point.
Which is, and it's like, you think about the age of VHS, which is just consumer magnetic tapes, and it's like, yeah, but seriously, who does that? The BBC.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, the head of the BBC at that point was infamous, and it was well known, not necessarily gossip, that he didn't like the show. He did not like Doctor Who at all. So a lot of people think that it was, shall we say, a kind of a passive aggressive move to wipe those tapes. And I'm sure there were tapes that were not being wiped at that point. I'm sure Doctor Who was, top of his list of things to get rid of.
Well, I mean, has the BBC ever liked Doctor Who? I mean, it's I don't know. That's just a rhetorical question.
Yeah. The people who worked on the show loved it. We know that. Very few people didn't like working on the show, even if they were crew. I mean, the Radiophonic Workshop, the people that gave us the wonderful Doctor Who theme. My favorite theme is of course the Patrick Troughton era theme, and I also like the visual effect, which is very similar to Hartnell's, but it takes a step forward. And I always found it more interesting in black and white. Personally,
I have seen some color stills, but it's like, remember, you and I are old enough to like remember when they had, well, you on TV, okay, color or black and white,
right? And sometimes the family could only afford black and white, but a lot of the TV shows are actually made in black and white, so you didn't really mind. I mean, the first season of Lost in Space was black and white, and it still looked great.
Yeah.
And a lot of monsters, let's be honest, black and white hides a lot of flaws.
Mm-hmm.
The more rubber you've got, the more fiberglass you got, the more zippers you got. Black and white is your friend when it comes to monster design.
Oh, yeah. No doubt.
And Also, I think it really does lend to adding some dignitas, sometimes gravitas, but certainly dignitas to certain actors in visually, and it also allows you to really focus on their voice. And so this is what I really enjoyed about Patrick Troughton. And I'd learned this before I actually got to see any Troughton episodes, because I used to read up on anything Doctor Who I could get, and I had every single one of the Troughton Target books. Remember the Target books?
Yeah, no, I have a whole collection of the electronic ones, but still, I mean, I used to have a bunch of Target books back when I lived in Chicago, and I just lost a whole bunch of stuff. But yeah, I remember going to the bookstore to buy them.
And the best cover artist for Target was Chris Achilleos, who is an award-winning fantasy and sci-fi artist. You'd also like his, shall we say, cheesecake art. He's done a lot of cheesecake art. And what most people don't realize is he was a master of pointillism, which is this is all done by hand. I mean, there was no Photoshop back then. So he had to do each of these little dots to create a grayscale face. Then he'd also have color painted stuff in the background to create this amazing black and white plus color effect. And the Ice Warriors, in fact, was one of his very best covers. And it just made me hungry to see the Patrick Troughton episodes. And then you learn that Patrick Troughton, in fact, years before this, had played Robin Hood on British television. And physically, that goes against type. I mean, look, the guy's 5'7". You don't think Robin Hood. That's 5'7" in shoes with heels, by the way. So he's probably more like 5'6" barefoot, right? But he pulled it off. And the other thing that was really nice is that it was very clear he was comfortable in the role. But what we learned later, if we did our research, is that he actually was friends with William Hartnell from more than 10 years before he took over the role. So Hartnell hated it, broke his heart to give up the role of Doctor Who, but he did say to Mr. Troughton, "Pat, if I have to give it up to anyone, I'm glad it's you." And I think that's a sweet story.
Oh. And there's, I remember that. I thought for a second, that was, when I remembered that, it's like, wait a second. I thought that was one of the Peladon novelizations, but no, I remember her with the screaming face.
Yeah. And boy, she screams in this episode. My God, that girl had lungs on her. I have to admit, this is why, like Scotty, my favorite companion was Zoe, because of her brains, but also the fact she was, shall we say, a little neurologically different.
Yep.
If you know what I mean. And
did she go to the Joe Grant School of Companionship?
I think they went to different schools of companionship. But the thing about Zoe was she was very feisty, very smart, but the actress was also willing to be very, very physical. I mean, there's the shall we say, the infamous shot of her in the very tight sequined bodysuit lying across, I believe, the console of the TARDIS. And
gosh.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I like her for her brains, but I have to say, I think she was one of the most attractive and sexy companions the Doctor ever had. Joe was nice, but see, Joe is just so sweet and cute and helpless. And
I know.
It bugs the living S word out of me when it's like you're trying to save the world and you're having to protect this itty bitty fluffy kitten in your hand the whole time.
But John Pertwee was a dandy.
He was a dandy, and I did like it. He was actually very officious. I think he was one of the most officious doctors, if not the most officious. And there was an interesting moment in that where, remember when Pertwee first meets the Brigadier, who wasn't a Brigadier before. When Troughton met him, he was a lower rank.
Yeah.
And he says, "You're not the Doctor. I knew the Doctor quite well. He was a funny little man. You can't be the Doctor," because humans didn't have any idea what the regeneration situation was.
Yeah.
And that was very interesting storytelling. But I do think that the show visually took a big hit when they decided to limit things to Earth. But then they stretched out of it. You remember Planet of the Spiders? You know,
Mhm.
you get to see some. We do get to see some other places, some other worlds with Pertwee, and it also added
Yeah.
an interesting subplot where he was constantly fiddling with the TARDIS, trying to get around that Gallifreyan sabotage.
Yeah. And it added that in itself added to the, oh well, the Time Lords are all powerful. They just sort of docked him on Earth because he violated the proclaimed policy of non-interference with the lesser races.
Yeah, yeah, and it's very interesting to look at the back and forth between across the pond, as they say, between the United States and Britain during the 60s, because I swear there are some look. Doctor Who started in 63. The Outer Limits started in 63.
Yeah.
And I swear by the time we're getting to 1965, there is some significant crossover going on, both visually and in terms of storytelling. Doctor Who started being willing to be quite frightening. I mean, we all heard the stories of the British kids who are now like, 20 years older than us, right?
Dalek Mania,
but also some of the monsters, including the Ice Warriors, but even the Yeti. I'm amazed that people were scared of the Yeti, but they're much scarier. Again, visually, this is one of my absolute favorite adventures. The Web of Fear, which takes place in London, and that's where we meet later to be known as Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart. And there the Yeti are actually frightening, but when we first see them in the first Abominable Snowman episode, I mean, let's be honest, they look like big cuddly plush toys. They're not scary. They're not scary.
Little brown bears bounding around.
Yeah, and they're very portly. I mean, they make Winnie the Pooh look like Jared Leto. And I couldn't take it seriously. And in that adventure, I was not a fan of the Great Intelligence. But by the time we get to Web of Fear and the Great Intelligence is making a comeback, then I mean when the Great Intelligence possesses that really charming bearded scientist who was I can't remember his name, but he was a great character actor for the BBC. It is very frightening. That guy played it to the hilt. He played it to the hilt, and there was this sense of absolute claustrophobia in the Web of Fear, because they're oftentimes underneath the streets of London.
Yeah.
In the sewers, and so there's something a little bit Phantom of the Opera about it, But at the same time, they started doing a lot of the quarry work, and you know what I mean by the quarry work in Doctor Who, and that began with Troughton as well, with one of the all-time greatest adventures, not just of Troughton, but a lot of people consider it to be the greatest Cyberman adventure and one of the top 10 Doctor Who adventures of all time, which is the Tomb of the Cybermen. And that one was really bloody expensive. I think that's the one that really pissed the budgeteers at the BBC off, because those were some big ass sets, man. Yeah,
the panoramic.
Yeah, and huge rooms, rooms.
And do you know what? I never saw The Invasion.
Pardon what? Pardon?
The Invasion. The next
Cybermen adventure.
Yes.
You never saw that?
Never saw it.
You still haven't seen it?
No, I mean, I have. I've been looking for it, but
hold on. Let me just type something into private chat and hold on. Okay. This is where I got to see it. Okay, now it comes and goes because you'll know this site very well.
Gotcha.
I rely on it all the time. Now, sometimes it's disappointing. You think, the Doctor Who stuff isn't here. And this is a legal site I'm talking about, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. I just don't want to mention it because if anyone's got their stuff up and they happen to hear this, I don't want them going and being a copyright snitch.
Yeah. No, I mean, I remember just for reference. I mean, when Claudia and I did a show about Superman 2,
Yeah.
We were talking about all the versions of Superman 2. There's the Lester cut, there's the Donner cut. Then there was like the 2-day that was on here on ABC in America. I'm like, I remember that. And it's like, you can't find that except it is on certain websites.
Yeah. Oh boy, wouldn't you have killed for Sarah Douglas from Superman 2 to play a Doctor Who villainess? Wouldn't that have been hot as hell? I mean, I don't mean to be verging off PG-13, but my God, and I think she helped me enter puberty a year early when I saw Superman 2. I mean, oh my God. Now, Terrence Stamp was a great actor. I mean, my God, he was fantastic in that. But Sarah Douglas, thank God she kept making shows and kept doing genre so we could enjoy her.
Yes. Very much.
If she was on Downton Abbey, I'm still not going to watch bloody Downton Abbey.
No.
But if there's a monster in it, if there's some science fiction in it, or if there's a ghost in it and she's in it, yeah, I'm there, Sarah.
I don't get Downton Abbey. I mean, we had upstairs, downstairs.
Yeah, oh man, we had that was constantly being rerun in Australia, and you could not escape that bloody show. And this is where later on, this is why I don't talk about Pete Davidson. We had to put up with All Creatures Great and Small for like 4 bloody years before he took over Doctor Who, and I said, "Oh no, not this guy!"
Wow.
Especially following Tom Baker. I mean, milk toast in a cricket suit. What the hell? I know. It's I know. I'm not gonna proselytize a character actor. So, but he also, I mean, he had some great companions. And to be fair, Davidson himself. This is not going into canon. This is just backstory for people who don't know. He admitted in print and also vocally. He was struggling the whole time to figure out who his doctor was going to be, and he didn't realize it till the very last adventure.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that's probably why Caves of Androzani was the best one. Yeah.
But then you look at Patrick Troughton, who had been talking with William Hartnell, and because they were friends, following Hartnell's career. I mean, Troughton is a very assiduous, very determined, very focused actor. And in fact, I don't know if you know this, but he played a very significant, very nasty villain in a Hammer horror film, which he almost never did. He almost never played villains. And he also played the Renfield, shall we say, to one of Christopher Lee's Draculas in one of the Dracula films.
Oh.
So and also one of the most sympathetic roles in that Dracula film I've ever seen. But when he played, he plays the chief of police in The Gorgon, which is a visually beautiful masterpiece from Hammer. In terms of horror, okay, it's very PG by Hammer standards. I mean, look, you're not going to get the cleavage in this one. There's almost no blood. Let's face it, the Gorgon doesn't kill via gore. It's in the name, but it's not in the movie. Yep. There's no gore in Gorgon.
Nope.
But it is visually magnificent. But Patrick Troughton was absolutely menacing and sinister in it. And look, you don't want a menacing, sinister guy running the cops in your town. You don't want that.
Well, it's not that he was in general, but he could be. He could pivot over to that. Troughton
could do that. And, at the same time, some people remember he also played the priest in the first Omen movie.
The first what?
The first Omen movie.
Oh,
Damien Thorne, the Omen movie. And it was a significant role. Didn't have that much screen time. But this is what I mean about his range. And I mean, he could play a mobster. He could play a cop. But when a guy is generally used to playing the good guy or the decent guy, I really respect him when they're willing to take the risk of doing something sinister. And let's face it, there was the one Doctor Who adventure where he had to play 2 people, the Doctor and someone who looked exactly like the Doctor. It just so happened. So the other thing is, with such a cultured, controlled, and properly theatrically trained voice, and we were very lucky that we had so many classically trained actors in Doctor Who. Very,
Yes.
very lucky. And that's something that, unfortunately, like, let's face
And
it,
let me
American Sci-Fi
say,
now just doesn't give a crap about that.
let me say hi to King Dolphin DV. Raymond
Hey,
Stockton.
Raymond! Hello.
And also Antiderivative Jill is here.
Oh, yay! Hello,
I
Jill.
would be here. I would be here, but I'm working on an important edit to premiere tomorrow. So I'm glad
yes,
you are streaming and talking to, but you are here.
You are very kind.
But
Jill.
you are here.
You're very, very kind, Jill, and I really do appreciate it. And Jill, if she hasn't seen the Gorgon, she'd actually really like that one. It's very eloquent without being artsy fartsy, if you know what I mean, Max.
Yes,
it's an eloquent film, and it's got Peter Cushing in it.
Ooh, okay. I'm gonna have to put. It's on my. I'm gonna have to put that on my view. On my.
I think it's on Tubi for free.
Okay.
And you get to see Patrick Troughton facing off with Peter Cushing. I mean, how good is that?
Ooh.
I mean, that's all. The only way that Horror Express, in which Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing play friends, I love that bloody movie, is if Patrick Troughton was also in the movie along with Telly Savalas.
Got him off talking. I see you finally got your Death Star. I don't like it.
That's very good. That's very good. That's waking me up. That's like a 3-shot latte in Manhattan, dude. That's a good one. Oh, so yeah, so we have to take into account that aesthetics fall into 2, technically 3 categories, and so you have the visual category, but you also have the audio aesthetics, right?
Yes.
And then you have the linguistic aesthetics, the semiotics. Like, for example, if something is red, do they choose the word vermilion or do they choose the word burgundy? And that sets an emotional tone of the sentence, and that affects the emotional tone of the scene.
Absolutely.
People were taking that into account back then. My God, we've lost so much class in the past 5 decades.
Yeah, it's like, well, we're not going to pick this. We're not going to pick this color because it could be controversial.
Or we have to pick these colors in order to be controversial, which also happens.
This is my DEI palette.
Forget RGB. We are now working with DEI.
I really liked it when DEI meant Dale Earnhardt International.
Yes.
Anyhow.
But so let's get back to some of your canon stuff, because I've been prattling on, but I have to earn my salt, as the old Romans would say.
No,
right?
no. I as I said, my initial theory before, you can always revise, was that the Time Lord canon started with the Deadly Assassin, because that's where he actually goes. That's where, in the war, at the end of the war games, you see,
You see 2 of them, and the costumes are very simplistic compared to what we see in the. I have to agree with you, but I'm just saying, on a technicality, it starts with Troughton, and then when we meet Omega, technically speaking, we're meeting another Time Lord.
Yes.
Even though he is a banished criminal.
Yes.
But then again, we find out the backstory there, and you can talk about the canon of how Doctor Who did anti-heroes right, and you know what I mean.
Yeah. And just the other thing is there's a callback to in the Tom Baker serial, I think it's Secrets of the Underground or The Underground, where he materializes with Leela on a ship, and it says made in Minos, the minions of Minos. And we discovered that there was a time before before the Time Lords have a non-interference policy where they went and they interfered, and well, the damn planet didn't blow up.
Yeah.
So let me bring up
the thing about the Gallifrey. Oh, sorry. The thing about the Gallifreyans is, and I'd like to hear what you have to say about it. It makes it very clear from the British standpoint how much the BBC hated hypocritical aristocracy.
Yeah. And we get our first real, although we see the Time Lords, we get our first real examination. And of course, the whole, like, 3/4 of the John Pertwee arc is like, well, you're banished to Earth. Right. You're banished to Earth with your unit buddies, except if we need you.
Yeah.
You got to go here or go there. So we have the 3 Doctors, which was a 15th anniversary special.
Yeah.
And you have the Omega antimatter coming to Earth and gobbling everything up. Of course, it's a bit bumbling, but. And so we have the introduction of where Time Lord power comes from. Why are they all powerful? How do they have time travel? How are they the most powerful? How are they the most powerful race in the universe? And also we have, the introduction of a bit of Time Lord politics. And
yes,
initially I thought was that this was the introduction of Lord Barusa, but I don't think it was. I think, but we see these Time Lords, and they're saying, "Oh no, we can't do this." And like, well, they have the power. They have the power to do whatever they want, or they have the power to bring. And of course, we have the multi-doctor episode. We have the birth of the multi-doctor episode.
Yes.
So we had Patrick Troughton come in, and we had William Hartnell, who was,
unfortunately, he was on his last legs then, so he had to sit in the chair.
He was on death's door and got caught in a time eddy. And I gotta say,
we have a great blob monster. There are great blob monsters here.
Yep.
Although they look actually, no, let me revise that. They're not blob monsters. They're Rice Krispie treats with an eye.
Yeah, they're sort of like, mobile tumors.
No, that's gross, Max. Accurate, but no, I could have done without that description.
Sorry.
But I mean, and they look. I'll be blunt. They got kind of ripped off in one of those Space 1999 episodes. Remember where they were with the gooey blob monsters and they were pretending to be beautiful humans?
I've never seen it, but if you say so, I will fully believe you.
Space 1999 was a show I loved, but it was a show I'd watch if I couldn't get Doctor Who.
Okay.
Doctor Who's always my first choice for science fiction. And here we go. Aristocratic, hypocritic, bureaucratic buttheads.
No, you must not do this. You can't. Well, we can. We can, and we will for a bit.
And look how great he is here. Yep. I mean, it's been several years, and he's just right back into the role. And this is the first time I actually got to see Patrick Troughton and William Hartnell. Because luckily, Australia was we were given the rights to show Doctor Who for free. And so we have the ABC here, which is the equivalent of the BBC.
Yes.
And so, I mean, the Doctor Who reruns would be every bloody night. And right before it was either right before Tennant came on or Eccleston. I think it might have been Tennant. They showed every single episode that existed at that time, from Unearthly Child all the way up to the final Sylvester McCoy episode. It was a grand year.
Wow.
Oh, look at that. He's such a great actor. I do love John Pertwee. I really do.
And thank you, Tim, for clarifying that he was Lord Bruce, and Barusa also does have his own little story arc, which I will talk about.
Well,
And-
they're a mixed bag of nuts. The Time Lords, and they also have, this is another thing that the English helped create, but they also ended up hating it by the 1960s. They have a caste system. We have to admit, Gallifreyans have a caste system, and that was very apparent when we get to the Deadly Assassin. Very, very apparent.
Yeah, and gets even more with the Invasion of Time, and we'll take a look at that. And you have the introduction of Omega.
Yes.
And the Doctor Who version of moving to a different neighborhood. Oh, poor Corporal Palmer.
Yeah.
I love this part.
Who I liked aside from Lethbridge Stewart the most was Benson.
Benton.
Loved Benson.
Yeah. I mean, I forgot what special feature it was, but he, there was a fan who went to go interview him for the special, who went to go interview John Levine at his house, and they were the unit gang was just so, it's like they said, how close were you to getting your own television show? So close.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, if Unit would have been like a combination of Man from U.N.C.L.E. and Kolchak the Night Stalker, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. And hello to Matt G. Taylor Swift greater than Disney Star Wars and MCU and Doctor Who, which is a pretty
nothing
low.
is greater than Doctor Who. Aside
from I think he's talking about modern, the neo.
Okay, all right. My apologies.
So I'll say, as Lethbridge Stewart says, we're in chroma, and we but that is a low bar. There's a low bar from which to shine. Two Time Lords? Could it be the same Time Lord? No! This is just.
Also, the interesting thing about Omega here is he is really breaking what we learn later is a major law of Gallifrey, which is you are not supposed to go and meet your other selves. You're not supposed to do that. That's a no-no.
Well, then
so that made this particularly interesting because, it wasn't the Time Lords being hypocritical. It was Omega saying, look, they've already imprisoned me. I don't give a damn. Screw you.
Yep. And we have, so we have Omega. We have Omega, who is it turns out that he is the source of all Time Lord power, that he was able to harness a supernova. And that is where the Time Lords get their time travel facilities.
Yeah. And art, the visuals and ideas in this particular adventure, magnificent for, something that's taking place before 1974.
Absolutely.
This is very, very, very conceptual, heady stuff, but visually rich and delicious.
Oh, yeah. No, definitely. Then minimal use of computer screen overlays. Oh man, I liked it when they had that TV console in the TARDIS.
Yeah, ditto. I miss CRT. I really do.
Yep.
But it's nice to have a laptop on your stomach, and then visually.
It's like, I'm looking at my setup is two 31-inch monitors next to my 29-inch iMac. So
yeah,
God only knows what that would be in CRT.
Oh God, I don't think it would be legally viable for anyone to move something that heavy into a home in Australia. I'm only half joking, but yeah, I had a big old hulking CRT, and until the screen would not turn on, I did not give it up. The buttons fell out. I had to use a chopstick, dude, to make it turn on and off. Press where the buttons used to be, Yep. And turn the volume up and down. That thing. it's like a dog that lives for 15 years. You can't put it down, and you're sad when it goes away. It's just your friend.
Oh yeah, no, I had a Zenith TV.
Oh,
and those were made in Chicago.
Yes.
At the time, and the only way it died was when a bolt of lightning actually struck the antenna.
Oh no.
Yep.
Oh no, that's terrible, because that's not the TV's fault. That TV could have lasted another 10 years.
I know. That was like, seriously, but what are you going to do? So, we have the doctors working together. They can mind meld, and they beat Omega, or they defeat Omega's plan.
Well, they defeat it, but also an interesting part of it, and we'll be kind of spoilery here, but not too much. Part of the reason why Omega at the end fails is they reveal to Omega the reality of his current reality, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And that sends him around the bend. And it's I'm getting goosebumps on my whole body just remembering it, that scene. And the actor's voice. I mean, that guy played a lot of shit.
You hear his anguish.
Yes. I reckon that guy played King Lear at least once. At least once. And I mean, it is I'm really glad that you brought this up, because for a lot of people, this is also considered top 20, possible top 10 of all Doctor Who adventures. And there's a good reason for that.
Yeah.
Oh, Bessie. We love Bessie. Bessie is cute.
Bessie. And they this is not going to be the last time we see Bessie either, fortunately.
No.
But we move on, and that brings us to of course, he met Sarah Jane Smith, and she stayed on to Tom, and that was just one of the all-time. That is the all-time great for me. In terms of pairing.
Yes.
What an assistant is to Doctor Who. What the relationship is.
Yes.
Independent of one or the other. That Tom Baker and Sarah Jane was really just the greatest combo.
And even at the beginning with John Pertwee, and remember how she was so shocked when the regeneration happens? Poor Sarah, she was so shocked. But one of the great things which leads into the creation of canon is when you have characters that you're writing and they're naturally going to do something. Sometimes, I've had this happen with some of the writing I've done. The old phrase, the characters write themselves, or suddenly the character's telling you what they're going to do, right?
Okay.
And you have this instinct when you want the character to go somewhere, and then it's almost like the character speaking to you going, I wouldn't do that, please figure out another way.
No, I totally.
And with Sarah, you have someone who clearly is incredibly intelligent, but also tough. But see, here's the thing. She's inquisitive. She's a journo.
Yes.
She's a journalist. And so that is a perfect combination for a scientist who is over 700 years old by this point, although they changed that a lot. That changed from Hartnell, and then it changed with Patrick Troughton, and then it changed to Pertwee. The age keeps going up all the damn time.
Yeah.
And by the time we get to Tom Baker, I think he said he was 795 years old.
Yes, because I think when in Sylvester McCoy's first episode, he mentions he's 953 years old.
Yep, there we go again. But Sarah Jane was magnificent. Now, she had a pair of lungs on her, too, when they chose to have her scream. But I like the fact that she didn't scream that much. It actually had to be something terrifying. I mean, let's face it. If you saw the bloody Zygons.
Yes. Brigadier!
Oh, they were disgusting and fascinating at the same time. And I don't want to, for YouTube, I don't want to say what they look like, but they look like a human who hasn't fully formed in the womb to a certain extent.
Yes. and maybe that's where they got their name.
Hmm.
Who knows?
Yeah, I'd rather think not, but I think you are correct.
Possibly. And so the deadly assassin happens right after the last Sarah Jane episode. He drops her off in Aberdeen. Says
that was very sad. That was a very sad ending. That I mean, honestly, even though I was a tough young teenage guy, dude, man, I had tears in my eyes.
Yeah.
I really did.
And it's like, I have to go to Gallifrey. Oh, I'm sorry, aliens are not allowed. I'm like, wow. Get this guy in the immigration policy.
Yeah.
and it was not only was it a Robert Holmes episode, but it was the first time where you see the first time you see the Doctor without an assistant to riff off of. And
which is what they used to be called. They only changed the companions later to be politically correct. But assistant is not a bad word, dude.
And in School Reunion, Sarah Jane pretty much pegs it. It's like, yeah, the Doctor likes traveling with an entourage.
Yes.
And he gets in Deadly Assassin, he has this vision of what's going to happen. Aesthetics,
I love the Victorian / Edwardian control room.
The second control room. Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. What did it's like? It's beautiful. It's elegant. It has some technology.
Yes,
but not as much as and that's like and we also have just the element of the never-ending TARDIS.
Yes.
In when it was introduced with the Mask of Mandragora. You know what I'm saying.
Mandragora, some people pronounce it.
And here we have modern Gallifrey. We're seeing something outside of control rooms, seeing like everyday life.
And the interesting thing here with what you just showed, 2 slides back, there. This is really strange and really creative because those lads, they're not just military, they're not just police, they're also a little bit of the Swiss Guard of the Vatican. And
exactly.
I think that was completely intentional.
Yes. When we see, we get the Matrix, the amplified panotropic computing network that gives people access to the Matrix. We learned what the Matrix is, that there are minds of people are transferred, which is kind of like something that was built into one of the novels between Star Trek TV and the movies, where with the Katra.
Yeah.
And we also have in this the introduction of Lord Barusa.
Yeah.
Who is a mentor and former teacher of the Doctors. And coming up on this slide, we have a Gallifreyan language, which is very rough.
But also interesting, it looks it's a little bit similar to our for lack of a better term, pre-Christian alphabets. So I like that. I like that element that their species and their culture is so old, but they have held on to it. Just like our modern English alphabet is now, how we understand it is now centuries old, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of the letters we have are actually based on the Nordic runes. So the T, the H, we have more than several letters that are actually well over 1,800 years old. So again, some writers and some designers, they cared, they paid attention, and this is 100% paying attention. This is 100% investment in making something happen. Don't you agree?
Absolutely. I mean, look at the size of that set, the costumes.
Yes.
I mean, even if those helmets were probably made of like reinforced cardboard still. And the props, oh my God, they're they cut out a piece of plexiglass and glued some glued some CO2 canisters to it.
Absolutely. And this is the first time we see really the truly Baroque version of the Time Lords, with these massive high collars, all the decoration, all the detailing,
the pageantry.
It's a combination of aristocracy, but also people at the head of a religious order, even though they're not religious. There's a lot of visual implications going on here. And it all, you don't need to have it spelled out. This is what we call in screenwriting subtext.
Yes.
This is an incredibly subtextual adventure.
And we also see this is a Time Lord, and we see a Time Lord being put on trial. We see the Doctor being put on trial for a second time.
Yes. And
he has some sketching skills apparently too.
And look, we have the cardinal red robes. I mean, honestly, dude, that's straight. No, I'm not even going to say it. You know what I'm going to say, but I'm not going to say it.
Well,
let's just say anyone who ever, no, I'm not going to say it.
Okay.
I'm going to leave that out.
And we have we also have Time Lord law. And the 17th Article 17 it's the Article 17 is a guarantee of liberty. And here we find out the master is back. He's back.
Well, I mean, ever since we had our first Scary Monsters, there were the occasional letters of complaint. Yeah. Right. Especially after the Brain of Morbius. That one really set off that woman who I'm not going to name, but she's notorious to the Doctor Who community. Notorious.
Oh.
And she tried to have the show canceled, by the way. But when we see when we see the Master in this one, oh my God, they went to town on the makeup. Yep. It was great.
Because it's like, what are you going to do? You could they obviously either couldn't or hadn't yet tried to cast Anthony Ainley, right, who comes in at the Keeper of Traken at the end of the run. And here we see the Matrix. This is inside the sum total of all Time Lord knowledge. And it's not, it's like you're thinking about going into like maybe a big library or a file cabinet, but no, it's this abstract place that has all this knowledge, and it has all this knowledge, and it becomes very, very abstract reality, and it's very
it's proper surrealism versus what young people say is surrealism, which isn't surrealism. But this actually is very much like a surrealist movie. It is like he's entering a dream state, but unfortunately, it's going to have pragmatic effects.
Exactly, and he's going in there to try and figure out what's what, and the Master has sent this guy in after him.
Yeah, it's very tense. I honestly think even with the limitations of budget, I think this was one of the most tense. One of the most nerve-rattling adventures we saw Tom Baker in.
Oh, definitely. He's in a fight for his life in the mid. He's in a fight for his life in the midst of being in a fight for his life.
Yes, and it is truly, without exaggeration, against all odds.
Yes.
And this is a very sinister character right here.
Yeah.
Very sinister. But you keep going.
And then, of course, the Master tries to send someone to foil him because the Master just loves to cheat. And then we learn that it's Chancellor Goth.
See, now this actually brings up something in canon and something that you were talking about before, and I alluded to. You have certain Time Lords that basically say, well, they put the middle finger up to the laws of Gallifrey because they know the aristocracy is cheating themselves. So why should they play by the rules if the bosses are not?
Absolutely. And they're saying, well, just because we're not supposed to do a thing doesn't mean you on one side you say just because we can do a thing doesn't mean we should do a thing. Right. And then the other side is just because we're said not to do a thing doesn't mean that we shouldn't do a thing.
Right. Right. And I mean, honestly, if you're looking at the lives of every living creature on a particular planet, then I think there should be what we refer to in Catholicism as dispensation, right? Which is the official excuse to say, all right, you can break this rule this one time.
Ah, yes. Okay.
And
Gotcha.
and you have to have a really damn good reason, though. But the other interesting thing when you were talking about the Matrix is I don't think they ever read Marvel comic books, but it's slightly or somewhat similar to the supreme intelligence of the Kree, which is not one intelligence. It has one face with a whole bunch of tentacles coming out of its head, but there's over 1,000 deceased Kree scientists who are part of the supreme intelligence. And it's also cybernetic. So it's interesting that there was this overlap and some ideas dovetailed, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and the idea of the Gestalt will surface many times again, not only in Doctor Who, but also in science fiction. And I know I didn't get it in the clips here, but towards the end, you see the Master. He's this old crusty, grungy guy now because he's at the end.
That's one way of putting it. He actually looks like a Lucio Fulci zombie.
Okay.
That's been in a microwave.
Fair enough. I missed the burn aspect, but yeah, totally. and he finds that you have the rod of the president. And if you have the rod of the president and you have the rod of Rassilon and the sash of Rassilon, and you learn about Rassilon.
Yes.
The first most powerful Time Lord who found this Eye of Harmony, which is able to take in all the energy from the supernova that Omega created.
Yeah.
And if you have his rod and his sash, you can bring up this humongous crystal looking thing with 4 cables that is the Eye of Harmony. And he tries to tap into that, and the Doctor stops him, and there's an immense amount of destruction.
Yes. And you know what else? Again, going back to the aesthetic I love here.
Yeah.
Look at the different body types and faces on the Gallifreyans.
Yeah.
They are not concerned about physical beauty whatsoever, but some of them are, especially the men. I'm saying this as an illustrator. All right. I'm not being a letter in the alphabet. I'm just saying, as an illustrator, some of these men are incredibly fit, incredibly handsome, and any Earth woman would say, "Oh yes, hubba hubba, sign me up." Yes,
and a bit of them are a bit bulgulgy, as it were.
Yes, and then you have these guys that look like an overcooked knish.
Yep. Yes, that's a really, really, really good way to put it.
So we've got range in the architecture, we have range in the costumes, we have range in the tones of voices, we have range in the sets, and we have range in the physical people themselves. This is I don't like it when people say, what's a perfect adventure? What's a perfect episode? But I think if we had to choose 5 that were perfect, this would be one of them.
Perfect episode. Shooty got one, jumps into a volcano.
Yeah. No comment.
End of episode. So we'll go to the next. We'll go to the next Tom Baker episode, which was the Invasion of Time.
Love that one.
Oh wait, sorry. Oh, here we go. This one, this Invasion of Time, and you see it. You see, the Invasion of Time has more politics, more Time Lord law. You have more of the lore of Rassilon,
and more TARDIS.
Yeah, and you have like the most TARDIS ever. And along this other arc, you have the elevation of Barusa, who is Cardinal. Cardinal is supposed to be Chancellor, but you see the Doctor in like the first 2/3 of this, and he's acting really weird. He's acting really weird, and he's meeting, and we have Leela and the Skins.
Yeah, I was watching this in Australia, and we would get it like a month after it aired at the BBC, so it was almost contemporary. And man, we were all talking about it in high school afterwards. So we were like, "What the hell's going on with Tom Baker?" What's the,
And I want to point out that the Gallifreyans were the first ones to ever use an Amber Alert.
Yeah.
Yep.
More robes,
more pageantry, and they were really, really, really consistent with the set decorations. In this one,
and capes. We got capes now.
Yep.
And look what, oh my God, that last slide you just showed. I mean, oh, there it is. Now that is the bishop's purple.
Yep. Again,
they're really kind of pushing a little bit of the Vatican imagery in this one.
Yep.
I don't mind.
Definitely. And this really is my, of the four actors who played Barusa, this was John Arnott, and he was my favorite.
Yes, and for many reasons. But you tell me what you really like about his acting style and how he portrayed the role. What do you really enjoy about it? I like the fact. Well, first of all, I think it's brilliant that you see the role, the relationship between them evolve more from the fact that it used to be a former teacher and former student. Yes. And you see the difference between the Castellan and the Chancellor, and he's very passively condescending to the Castellan. He's giving him all these little nitty bitty details but he's trying. Kind of passive aggressive.
Yes, exactly. He's passive aggressive towards the Castellan, and he has more. Even when he's being an ass, he's more respectful of Barusa. He gives Barusa the task of lining the office with lead, and we see that we see not only the power of the Time Lords, we see that they have this barrier, this transduction barrier, which keeps everything out. Right. Except, of course, if you send K9 into and we have the introduction of the Vardens, this race that Doctor is apparently collaborating with, and they travel along wavelengths of thought, which is why you have that lead-lined, wonderful gear-walled office. Yes. And also, you have the introduction of Outer Gallifrey. Yes. Which is this howling wilderness where, the Time Lords seem to have just given up, but there's people out there. I'm not being political at all. I'm very apolitical when it comes to sci-fi. But when I first saw this, I thought, okay, so they're using Afghanistan kind of as a model for Outer Gallifrey. Could be. Gallifreyistan. Galistan. Yep. That was good, Max. Very good. Yeah. And you see that there's there is this caste system playing out, and they're taking the Doctor at his word, that they're sort of taking the Doctor at face value, that he is taken over and he's collaborating with his alien friends. Yep. And you have the Doctor interacting with the Matrix once again, and he figures out you see that as this collaboration of minds, he figures out how to not take down the transduction barrier, but put a small hole in it. Yeah. Which is where the Vardens start to feel comfortable. It's like, okay, we can be in physical form now.
Yeah.
Which I just
Okay, now I'll be honest. Aesthetically, this bugged me. All
yeah.
right? I can't give 100% compliments all the time. I got to be honest. There's no reason for me to be here. I hated those uniforms. I did
Yep.
not like those costumes. These I like. You know,
Yeah.
the Gallifrey and primitives
Yeah.
I like.
Yeah,
This
these were
crap.
like
Oh my god.
oh my
Oh.
god. It's like, oh good, they're in a time loop now. Thank God, they deserved it just for those outfits.
Oh. It actually looks like a sci-fi version of a bad costume from Hogan's Heroes.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna. Gosh, I couldn't say where it was from, and then of course we have
Yay!
the potatoes,
Potatoes, the golems. Remember?
Yep. Yep.
Oh my God! I mean, I do love their helmets. I love the 1970s and early 80s Sontaran design and aesthetic. I mean, you're not look unless you can shoot through the eye hole. Nothing's getting through that damn helmet.
Yeah.
Nothing. Oh, and the big chunky shoulders and the material of the body part of the uniform.
Yes.
It's just, oh my God. And the notion, it's become very clear by this point, because we've had 2 Sontaran adventures before this, that these are clone people, and they are good. They are perfectly happy being in lockstep.
Exactly. You know, there's no individuality. There's no and by this time we've also had the horror of Fang Rock, so we've seen their mortal enemies, the Routons.
Oh God, you know, that is one of my all-time favorite episodes. It's one of the worst monsters Doctor Who ever created.
Yep.
The glad bag with a couple of cables attached.
Yep.
And that was pretty much what they used. But the Sontarans are fantastic. The Routons actually. The funny thing about the Routons is when the Doctor was mocking the hell out of the Rutan,
yep,
and basically saying, "You've been losing the war for 200 years. You're just too much of a P word to admit it." And by the way, hello, Dead Man walking. Hello,
oh hey,
hello.
Dead Man.
Dead Man won't have much to say because he's never going to watch this stuff.
Yeah, well,
Dead Man's not the biggest fan of British science fiction. He does love Buck Rogers and Battlestar Galactica. So we got to, you know, I'm not coming down on Dead Man at all. I
that's
love
fair enough.
But
and we,
you know,
oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, being perfectly honest, Max, you know, you and I, we can make some, say, pub level jokes, but we have to admit and be honest with our audience, we do like some fussy intellectual science fiction.
I mean, I grew up on this stuff. I grew up on this stuff, and I thought, and you know, I paid a bit of a price when I was a young man for thinking like, yes, this is the way. But you know, I just kind of came back to it, you know, because you know, this is the best stuff. And you see that.
Look at that. That is a magnificent prop right there.
Yeah, the DMAT gun
was probably made for $5.95.
You know, and he has this weapon. He has this weapon which is of the horrible, which is born of the horrible knowledge from the old dark times, and we see the ultimate power of Rassilon is to completely retcon it for him.
Yeah.
And of course, Leela and K9 stay behind with Andred.
But at least, you know, look, I was actually kind of okay with that versus the Sarah Jane thing, because she fell in love. They are opposites attract. That is oftentimes the best marriage. Yes. And she has a family. You know, look, she's got the most intelligent cybernetic creature that she could ever hope to meet, who is also the family dog. I mean,
Wav, Two Wav.
And yes, and look, the guy she's with, she's got, I hate to sound a certain way, Max, but she's got financial security for the rest of her life, if you know what I mean.
Yep. So that moves us on to, I know you're not going to want to talk about this, but you know, we have
no choice.
The next Time Lord adventure. We can really just chew up the scenery here. This is of these 5 serials. I think it's, gosh,
I screamed at the television when I saw his face, because like I said, I had to put up with this guy for 4 years beforehand.
No, I understand. And I will admit here that I think was this. Let me just look at the episode. It's like I think Earthshock, because Earthshock, where he fought the Cybermen and we had the passing of Adric, that wasn't, you'd think that would be a season finale, but it wasn't. They had another, they had Time Flight, which I personally enjoyed, but then again, I'm an aviation geek.
Right.
So I just loved seeing the Concorde on Doctor Who.
Oh, ditto. I never got to fly on the Concorde, but man, I illustratively, I love the visual design of the Concorde. I love it because it looks like an elegant bird of prey.
Exactly.
And the visuals, look, just because I didn't like Peter Davison doesn't mean I didn't enjoy a hell of a lot of these adventures. And some of them were my favorite stories, just not my favorite Doctor. And again, it wasn't his fault. He didn't know what to do. And it wasn't his fault that the costume designers made the absolute wrong decision, but I understand why they did it, because they had an obligation for each Doctor to look as far apart from the previous one as they could go. And with Tom Baker, I mean, he had 5 different costumes, at least in his run. And some of them were, again, to use the word, very Baroque, oftentimes very Victorian, very detailed, oftentimes visually complicated. And so it made sense. And to be fair to a whole bunch of other people, I have interacted with 500 people who love Pete Davidson the best out of every Doctor. Oh, dear God, it's Tegan. Dear God.
Yeah, but
oh God, Tegan! You know how much of it is an embarrassment to our country.
Yeah, no, I get it. And
but with Nyssa, let me tell you, I never liked Corduroy until I saw her.
Yep.
Doctor Who, and I'm like, oh, I like Corduroy now.
I've always loved brunettes.
Oh, I like brunettes in tight slacks.
Yep.
And she is a beautiful young woman. And actually, the woman who plays Tegan Jovanka, she's actually quite lovely as well. It's just look, she could have been a great companion. I think it was, I mean, look at her. She's 80s hot. You know what I mean? Class. You can see her listening to the Bangles and the Go-Go's quite easily, right?
Yeah.
And I honestly think it was all in the screenwriting and the direction. I think they wanted, because Brits at this point really did not like Australians at all, you have to understand. So I think it was intentional, making her so dislikable.
Yeah. And it went against like what people normally accepted as an assistant.
Yes.
You're not supposed to.
She considered herself almost a kidnap victim. She was very whingy.
Yeah.
We don't say whiny, we say whingy in Australia. She was a whingel puss.
Ah, okay.
So puss is the face, like a whiny face, whingel puss. She was oh God, my mother used to say, don't you be a whingel puss at me. And I mean, Tegan was a whingel puss. But then again, people had problems with Adric until he made that wonderful sacrifice at the very end. And then we were all in high school afterwards going, yeah, he sucked, but he came good at the end.
Yeah. Well,
chair.
I mean,
the comfy chair.
The what?
The comfy chair that was in that area of the TARDIS. And you notice that the discs are now starting to have different colors every so often.
Yes. Absolutely. Oh, it's the Omega TARDIS and
yeah, I actually dig it. I really like the green wall behind him, the variety. And I also liked his really weird Ultraman monster sidekicks.
Yeah, it seemed like something you would see in a Japanese Godzilla movie.
Definitely.
And then we also find out that the Time Lords have a death penalty, which they use in only very rare occasions. And we see Leonard Sachs now as President Barusa. And of course,
fascinating group of actors here.
And of course, Colin Baker as Commander Maxwell.
Yes. And I'll be honest, I really enjoyed him in this role. So after the final Pete Davidson episode, when I saw Colin Baker's face, I mean, I cheered like Americans who lived in San Francisco cheered when the 49ers broke their losing streak and won the Super Bowl back in the 70s.
Nice.
I mean, we have our teams that go through losing streaks, too.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me started. The team from my town, not the one I'm in now.
Yeah.
Okay, look, those sons of bitches are never going to win the finals.
Yeah, dude, I'm a Chicago Cubs fan, so
you get it, right? Same thing.
And even though Tegan went off to be a flight attendant, went off. She's still getting embroiled in these madcap adventures.
Yep. I mean, that is actually very accurate. Australian flight attendants or stewardesses, as they were called back then. We weren't calling them flight attendants.
You're a stewardess.
Yes. And you would have head stewardess. That sounds like a pun, but it's not. And look, they would take the job because they got the travel. They got actually very good money if they were an Australian stewardess, because we have very severe unions, and they were very well protected. They rarely. Oh, I love that bloody costume. It's silly, but I love it.
The ergon.
But they just wanted a lifestyle. That's why they became the stewardess. Yeah. And look, part of me understood Tegan's motivations entirely, but I'm thinking, look, as my family and a lot of my culture teaches us, whinging will get you nowhere. Change the strategy. Change the strategy, Tegan. Be like Doctor Who. And that's another thing I wanted to mention about Tom Baker, particularly from The Deadly Assassin onward.
Yeah.
But particularly with the goofy Hogan's Heroes bastards, right?
Yeah.
This is the first time we really see the Doctor being willing to be utterly duplicitous, sneaky, and two-faced in order to get the best result.
Yeah.
And that takes guts, to have your hero basically be willing to con everybody. And that was a great thing about Tom Baker's Doctor Who. He did not mind rubbing people's noses in the fact that he was older, smarter, and more clever than they were.
Yeah. And one of the episodes which hey,
Snorty.
Snorty's back for a bit.
Yeah.
And one of the episodes I both love and hate, Nightmare of Eden. It's just
hold on, man. Hold on. I gotta get it. I gotta get a beverage from the fridge on that one. You set me off. I'll be right back.
So, Nightmare of Eden is one of those episodes where you have frivolity run amok versus an episode such as City of Death, which was one of the most watched which was the most watched serial of Tom Baker. They were getting 17-18 million for the episodes of those serials. But that was City of Death was something where frivolity was very well controlled. And, the Doctor was allowed to be ridiculous. Whereas the point where I brought it up is in Nightmare of Eden, it begins with these two ships, seeming Pilot Air and these two ships, and they materialize inside one another. And then the Doctor appears, and Romana says, "Oh, should we interfere? Interfere? Of course we should interfere." Doctor says, "Always do what you're best at." And it had, because it's just that there were. I mean, it just flip flops from this and that, and it's just there's just too much frivolity in it for me to say it is one of my favorite episodes. But the times when it's frivolous and you have these Keystone cops aboard, and
I know.
oh my God, the man, but so it's when the Doctor, but I completely agree with you. When Tom Baker had good writing and good direction, and he was allowed to be frivolous, that was him. Because he's even said there was a point at which I stopped being Tom Baker and I was just the Doctor from then on.
Yeah. Yes. And I agree with you, Snort. Mary Tam is the only proper Romana. I understand that Tom Baker was dating Lalla Ward. A lot of people don't know that. They got heavily involved. That's one of the reasons she took over. It's unfortunate Mary Tam needed to go on to do other things. She wasn't fired. She moved on. That happened with a lot of people on Doctor Who.
Yep.
But she was pure elegance, sexiness, intellect rolled into one. She was almost a female czar in Time Lord form. And you remember that glorious long white coat with the fur she had?
Yeah, in the Rebos operation. Well, by the time I say Ramona de Lunda, you could be dead.
Yes.
Like, okay, then call me Fred. All right, come on, Ramona.
And honestly, a lot of us here, when we saw that particular adventure and we heard those lines, we loved it. And one of the beauties that you'll like about Max is that Doctor Who was so universal and so well written. The same guys on the rugby team that would beat the crap out of someone for owning a comic book actually loved Doctor Who and watched it as well.
Yes. It's it made it. Like I said, it's just an example of what happens when you put good writing and characters above anything else.
Yes, and you allow the actors to really breathe in the role, because they weren't getting paid the same amount as other shows. So it's just like in comic books. If you're going to pay somebody 60% or 40% of what they're worth, the trade-off, and this happens a lot in comic books, is you get more creative latitude.
Yes. I mean, and some of these serials, the Robots of Death.
Yeah. Oh God, I love that one.
I think the entire budget for the serial was around just under £75,000 at the time.
And it looked like it was 3 times that amount. Those were some of the most interesting robot designs I have ever seen, and the differences in the voices, the sets, and then the human characters with their designs, looking a little bit shall we say east of Byzantium, if you know what I mean. With the especially with the face paint. I mean, it was very, the word we used to use in the 70s was exotic, and that was a word that we meant. It was a code for sexy, but not quite Caucasian.
Yes. Okay. I'll take that.
And it was. I mean, honestly, the Robots of Death had some sexiness in it. Really did. And I mean, that happened a lot in Doctor Who from the 60s onwards. But another thing that maybe you'll want to talk about a bit later, when I know we're talking a lot about canon here, but you know how there were the one and done adventures that didn't
the bottle shows.
Yeah, and Peter Davidson had some great episodes in that regard, particularly his few horror-based episodes.
Yeah, the oh gosh, like I loved For the Doomsday and The Visitation. I don't know how you feel about Black Orchid though, but
look, believe it or not, I really do like it.
I go ahead.
You hate it? Do you hate it?
No, you know what? I don't love it, but I love the fact that I love the fact that the Doctor arrived at the exact time and the exact place that he was perfectly dressed.
I love that. I thought that was very clever. And also, look, I might have mentioned this to you in chat back in the old days, if you know what I mean. But I don't want to get weepy waily by bringing up the old days.
Yeah.
On a certain show. But I am a fan of a lot of Agatha Christie.
Yeah.
Okay. And I particularly like a show based on her books called Tommy and Tuppence. Right.
Yeah.
I love that show.
Do you know what I loved most? Smarty Thomas. Yes, the doctor's here. First class bat and a demon bowler.
Yes, and so this had that Tommy and Tuppence feel, mixed with horror, mixed with science fiction, mixed with Doctor Who. So for me, I realized a lot of people are gonna. I was watching this when it came on Aussie Telly in the 80s, and I thought, oh my God, all my friends are gonna hate this, but screw them. This one's for me.
Yeah,
this one's for me.
I mean, it was a legitimately good adventure. I just, sometimes as a kid, I'm like, okay, I could take the Anglo. I like the Anglo. I was brought up on the Anglo, but wow, this is a little bit much of a period piece, but I like it.
Yeah.
So
go back to that other slide. Just one back.
Oh, you know what?
She disappeared. Poor Tegan. Poor Tegan. She's in and out of time.
Yep.
William Hartnell kicked her out the door. Did you ever see the episode where William Hartnell got so pissed off at the assistants, the companions? He said, "You are stowaways, and if you confront me one more time, I'm going to open that door and send you out into a lack of time and space." He was going to open the doors to the TARDIS in mid-flight.
Yep.
He was a cranky old man.
Yeah, he was. Let me.
That's why I love Capaldi, because Capaldi was like channeling William Hartnell at his angriest all the time.
Exactly. I just wish he had better writing.
I mean, I was so shocked. I was like 20 years old looking at this going, you're Doctor Who. You don't threaten to knock people into basically limbo for all eternity. Well, they'll be freezing and unable to breathe, but unable to die. I mean, come on, dude.
So
love this show so much.
Let's see. Is gonna bring us. That's gonna bring us to the final. I'll bring this up so I can pause it. Come on, sure. There we go. And and we have the 5 doctors, and we have.
I liked it when he wore his fez best. I liked him in the fez.
Who? David Tennant?
No, William Hartnell.
Oh, okay.
He often wore the Russian version of the fez.
Yeah. He loved the furries. One day I shall come back. Yes. No. I mean a furry jacket. Anyway, so we have the 5 doctors.
Oh, this is so good. I have to, Max. I hope you forgive me, but
yes.
This is the only thing that Rift Tracks has ever destroyed that I was pissed off at them destroying.
Really? I didn't know Rift Tracks did this one.
Oh, look, 2 of the Rift Tracks guys are massive Doctor Who fans.
Wow.
Big Kevin is a massive Doctor Who fan. Massive. Okay. And Mike puts up with it, but Bill is also a Doctor Who fan. But Kevin is the real big one. So, I mean, I understand that they felt the need to do this, and I do like the actor they chose here to portray William Hartnell.
Richard Hurndall.
He's gone. But look, a lot of the jokes were funny, but look, I couldn't laugh, dude. I know I know it sounds really prissy of me. I could not laugh at them destroying this adventure. I love this one.
Yeah, and even it's like I saw when I was a kid. I mean, of course, I didn't see this when it aired, but I saw this maybe shortly thereafter when a lot of people my age, our exposure to Doctor Who was when it was
PBS.
Quite cheap. Yes, PBS, exactly. So we caught
marathons.
Yeah. So we have Richard Hurndall as the first Doctor, and there's something amiss in Gallifrey.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't want to talk about whatever PBS is going through now, but
Yeah.
back then in the 80s and the 90s, look, that's when I was living in America, that's how I saw my Doctor Who, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And I contributed to one of their marathons, right? I
Yeah.
never got the damn gift, but $50 for a mug. I didn't even get the mug.
Dude, I was gonna say it was either a mug or a tote bag.
It was a mug. I drank so much coffee back then, Max. I needed the mug. The tote bag, nah. That's just
Yeah.
something I'd give away at a convention. Nah.
Okay.
But
I mean,
man,
yeah.
God bless the old PBS.
Yeah. I mean, you had Doctor Who, you had Blake Seven, you had The Prisoner.
Yes.
You had all the BBC and ITV shows came to the US through because they were meant to be shown without or with limited commercials.
Right.
So, and then we have the Brigadier. There he is once again.
Back then, the BBC was disallowed to run commercials. And so the BBC and ABC, you would get through the entire program, right? There'd be no break, right? So an episode of Doctor Who would run with no break. And then you would have advertisements for what was happening on the BBC later that week. But there was no corporate, no product placement, nothing. And those are the golden years. And that was going on for a very long time until recently. Very long time.
And then we have John Pertwee and Bessie.
And the horn.
Yeah. And originally it was just a black triangle, and they got caught. And I have to find my other selves.
Okay, now here's something else, because we have to occasionally say when there's something we don't like, because let's face it, 99% of what we said has been glowing, right?
Her raincoat.
I bloody hated Turlo.
Oh, yeah. You know what? Mark Strickson he had a shit role to play. He did.
Yeah, and like Tegan, I think he was written that way.
Yeah.
Obviously a very sensitive, very attuned actor, very detailed actor. And he could do subtlety of expression or the big expressions.
Yeah.
But I didn't like any of his storylines, quite frankly.
Yeah, well, he's written in as the Black Guardian's agent initially, and
the betrayer. He's the betrayer.
Yeah. And he's got to wear he wears that school uniform like.
Wait, I gotta ask you, Max. Ask you. So when you saw the Black Guardian the first time we really see him, right?
Yeah.
And he's got that bloody crow feather cap on, right? You remember?
Yep.
Did you have a flashback to the Time Bandits just for a second?
Kind of. I mean, it's like, dude, she's supposed to wear black, not like. Supposed to wear black, not kill a damn apiary to make your costume.
I know. I mean, honestly, I'll make a joke about it later, but I want you to keep talking.
So we have the clips, and like initially when I was a Doctor Who fan, I didn't know about Shada, so I didn't. And I was like wondering, where did they do the? Wow, okay, great, but they got to use that. And we see Barusa in his final form, played by Philip Latham.
I mean, honestly, look, we know it's just unfortunate. Some people pass away. We know we would have kept Robert Delgado if he was still alive, but he unfortunately, God rest his soul, he was gone by this point. But I think Ainsley was all. I mean, I can't say equal, but I can say there was nothing disappointing about his portrayal.
No, he wouldn't. I mean, hold on.
Hello, Ptolemies.
Yeah, Ptolemies, man. Good to see you. And the truck dog, the pepperoni.
Magnificent little furry friend.
Yes.
Magnificent.
I've actually met him in Vegas in 2021.
Oh, that's very cool.
Oh,
I
yep.
love that. I love that.
So yeah, he is sitting down, and something dark is happening. We know that something very very dark is happening in Gallifrey, and it's so dark and so evil that it's not only ensconced to the Doctor, but
Yes.
they have to. It's like you are the most vicious and most evil. Your deeds without beyond number, your villainy without end. And he's just sitting there. He's like, thank you. Hey, I thought this was a roast.
Exactly. It's like when Joel and the Satellite of Love would say, "You guys are so sinister and awful and evil," and Frank and Tracy go, "Thank you."
Why, thank you.
And
then,
they meant it. They,
yep.
they took it as a total compliment. But I mean, look at the leer this guy can have.
Yep.
I mean,
And then,
Ainsley can really leer at
yes,
people. He's got the very disconcerting eyebrows, which he would use on occasion, never too much. But he knew how to use his face and his voice. And he's not a tall man, but dude,
Yeah.
the moment he walks into a room, you think, okay, this could go very badly immediately.
Peoples of the universe, please attend carefully. The message I have is vital to the future of you all.
Yes, absolutely. And I was glad they brought back the Master, because we didn't have the modern sequence of events that now happen in television back then. People were still finding their feet. Things were still being done organically. Things were being done off the cuff, just like the creation of the canon in Doctor Who. It was a week to week, month to month, year to year thing. And so you hear that Robert Delgado has died, and some of us honestly thought, well, they got different actors to play the Doctor after Hartnell passed. Why can't we have a new Master? Right? Luckily, they did.
Yeah. We're very, 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 hold on, very lucky. I'm trying to find,
And when you talk about the ongoing creation and expansion of the Gallifrey storyline, otherwise known as canon, I just prefer storyline or history.
Yep.
He is subtextually telling us a lot about the Gallifreyans without on-the-nose expositional dialogue. His reactions to them, his attitude towards them is telling us a lot of backstory without directly telling us a lot of backstory.
I'm going to take a slight detour to show me and Truck Dog. There's me.
Oh, yay! Such a cutie.
Yep. So I'll bring back the share screen window. Seriously? Wait, what happened? Okay.
We're doing pretty good for lack of sleep, guys.
Yeah. So we have the first Doctor, and he finds Susan, Charlie, it's Susan. Like, it all makes sense all of a sudden.
My God, look, when I was 11 years old, and she would have been about 22 in the photo from the 1960s, I ended up having such a massive crush.
Oh, me too.
Actress who played Susan. Massive
Carol Ann Ford.
Carol Ann Ford, yes. And she also was in a gangster movie before this.
Really?
Yeah. She played a very unfortunate, very tragic character, but man, she was gorgeous. And she was a waitress in a beatnik cafe bar that was a front for crims.
Ah, I can see her playing that. I am going to show. Can I show your oil painting?
Yeah, the Dalek, the Dreadnought Dalek.
Okay, let's see. Share screen. There we go. And this is. I love the weapons attachment.
Thank you.
I love the weapon.
That took half the time of the entire painting.
Yeah, no, I see the art.
Yeah. And I thought, look, I know it's a little, rainbow Dalek, as one of my friends said, but by this point by the time we're getting to Sylvester McCoy, you're getting a lot of different chromatic variations in the Daleks. And
exactly.
Did you notice the eye stalk, how it's totally protected and buttressed? Because look, if they can't see, they can't fire.
Yep.
What do you got to do? You got to
Yep.
protect visuals. You got to protect the ability to see the enemy.
And of course, the classic doctor, who's like, aim for the stalk of the eye.
Yes.
My vision isn't bad. I cannot see.
Well, sometimes there were a couple of episodes where they tore the entire stock off.
Yeah.
That's brutal, dude. That's like thumb gouging a human being. So, and of course, you notice I was still respectful. I kept the classic toilet plunger sucker arm. I didn't alter that at all.
And then we backs him into an alley, and oh my God, it's the Tower of Rassilon.
Carol Ann Ford was still so gorgeous at this point.
Yep.
She was in her mid-40s. She looked like she was in her 30s. And the other thing that was great was in this episode, and she mentioned it, like she had a resentment towards Doctor Who because she said it destroyed her career. She said that in print.
Okay.
I don't think so, but I understand why she thought so, being 25 years old and suddenly she's not getting certain roles anymore that she wanted, the serious, dramatic roles. But the thing is, she had an allure, and in this episode, because you remember how she was a 22-year-old who had to play someone who was
teenagers,
the Time Lord variant of 16, so she was probably like 400, but that's 16 in Time Lord years, right? And she's always having to be screaming and using the the little oh my God grandfather voice, and here she got to play an adult, and an adult with agency and not weepy waily, not whingy, not whiny, and it just made my heart sing when I saw it. Really did.
Yeah, no, totally. And it's like you had the instant connection. So let's see. Moving on. We have the Doctor and the Brigadier, and
the fur coat. That fur coat actually came from the Black and White years. He wore that. Troughton in the Black and White years. I think he first wore it, in fact, with the Yeti, the first abominable snowman adventure.
Yep.
And it's so funny because I love Troughton's willingness to go for the bit, and this is part of the aesthetic, because he's such a tiny little guy, and he's wearing this coat that is like 3 times his own size.
Yeah, exactly. And has a little drawstring on it.
Yeah. And it's cold out there. Look, that is British winter. They're filming in British winter. You know that. I'll speak in Fahrenheit for our American friends. It's like 35 degrees out there.
Totally.
Lethbridge Stewart, man.
Yep. Oh,
Sarah.
Oh my God. I'm so. Wait a second.
I have to admit, purple is not her color.
Yeah, I did not like the. I was never digging the raincoat.
No, I didn't like the raincoat, but even if it was a bright scarlet red, or look, every woman and men too, they have the colors that really work with them, not just their coloration, but their face. Like, look at this gentle cream trench coat. Perfect for Carol Ann Ford.
Yeah,
perfect.
Exactly. But
and the accent of color around the neck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was the 80s. So what are you gonna do? I got now here's just a little foible. It's like what okay, what do they see? What is she seeing now? What is she not seeing now that she's gonna see in like a second?
Her career flashing before her eyes.
Oh, that's cold. That's cold.
Look, I'm sorry. She's the one that made the comments. I'm just backing her up. I love her. Okay?
Ice cold.
I mean, that's Irish gallows humor right there. But oh boy, but God, she looks gorgeous here. And even look, I would say this. I think Tegan was the least obnoxious in this adventure of all her adventures.
Totally. She was still herself. More to the point, what are you young people doing in my TARDIS? It's his TARDIS. Oh, well, that changes everything.
And yes, and the dialogue is great, but also just look at the various types of costuming, the styles here. I love that detail on Anthony Ainley's collar. That was one of the best outfits. But you have Tegan, who's ready to go to the cocktail nightclub. you have Carol Ann Ford, who is ready to show up for a job interview and possibly seduce the potential boss. You have Turlo, who looks like a bloody mod who just got off a moped.
Yep.
And from 1965, you have William Hartnell, who looks like he just stepped out of the foundation of Wells Fargo Bank. And then you have Pete Davidson,
Spotty Thomas. Oh,
it's
hey.
lovely. It's just great.
And hello to Mars Monkey Max.
Hello, Mars Monkey Max. We know who you are.
We know who you are. You know, Turlo always struck me as the kid who wanted to be a punk.
Yeah.
Who wanted to be a punk, but his parents wouldn't let him.
Right. So it became a mod.
Yep.
And he honestly, because there were some illicit substances the mods were involved with in the 60s, right? That was the big issue. He looks like he was dealing in back alleys.
Yeah. Yeah.
To his friends on the mopeds, look, let me ask you, the first time you saw Turlo, did you suddenly say, oh, this is the guy we can't trust? First scene.
Kind of, yeah. It's like it's like the Doctor first encounters him, like when it's like, what are you doing at the Council of my TARDIS? You know what? We'll table that.
Yeah. Well, this is another beautiful thing about the Doctor and many of his incarnations. He could do the watch and wait game and let the enemy think he's being oblivious or he's tired and he's missing something. No. That guy had a GoPro in the back of his brain clicking all the damn time.
Yep.
I love it.
And and again with Anthony Ainley, you see these are dark times. We are seeing we are seeing the darkest of the dark side of Time Lords and Gallifreyan society.
Yep, and the implied corruption.
Yes.
It's like a lot of guts to do for the show, I think.
And it's like the use of the time scoop and all these. It's like why do you even still have the death zone? Wouldn't you just like plowed it over and gotten rid of it? But it's like, no, well, we kind of have to keep it. Just remind everyone.
Yeah, but also, that's that's kind of like, I think that's part of the English, not British, the English culture where they still have some of the rooms in the Tower of London where people had horrible things happen to them. They're not letting that go either. I think it's a culturally psychological element, and I appreciate it being in Doctor Who because it's culturally honest. And I do think up until recently, Doctor Who was one of the most, even though it's a sci-fi show, I think it was one of the most culturally honest shows Britain ever came up with.
Yes. And now everyone's having a nice little cocktail and oh my God.
High collar. Now the funny thing is that collar, if you make that collar yellow and the cape yellow, he's wearing a 1960s Vision from the Avengers.
Yeah. And I love the edit. It's like, if you would allow me to, I'm here to help you. Help me. I've never heard anything so preposterous.
See, there's sometimes, this is the thing about Pertwee is he understood that officious can be very funny at the same time. And let's face it, he played a living scarecrow in a kid's show who was always being funny and goofy. The man had great comedic timing. Oh
yeah, I mean that was sort of his bailiwick before coming to Doctor Who.
Wurzel Grummage. And also before Doctor Who, just to show respect to everyone, not just Patrick Troughton, do you know he was in a beloved cult horror film?
No.
It was called, you're going to love the title. It's so bloody goofy. The House That Dripped Blood.
Okay, I can believe that.
And let me just look up, because he had give me a second. He had a female co-star. Let me just quickly be
The House That Dripped Blood, 1971, starring
and
Ingrid Pitt.
Ingrid Pitt, yes. who did a lot of horror films and showed a lot of décolletage, if you know what I mean. And I
yes.
think you do. She was known for her talent, but she was secondarily known for two talents, you know. And she didn't mind. She didn't mind. But I mean, she almost never did a nude scene. If she did, that's because she actually wanted to. And she got along very well with John Pertwee. And it was a portmanteau movie, meaning it was a series of more than several short films within a film that all tied
John Bennett. John Bennett, who played Gerald Finch in Invasion of the Dinosaurs, and Li Sen Chang in The Talons of Wang Chiang.
Oh God, I know we're going to get into trouble for political correctness, but at some point, before we finish off, we got to show just 5 minutes of respect to The Talons of Wang Chiang. And I mean, honestly, you know, our friend, God rest his soul, my God, could he do a good Jago impersonation?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Jago is one of my favorite characters in Doctor Who. Really is.
And in fact, they did, I think they did a number of, of Lightfoot and Jago. Those two.
They were a great team. They really were. And honestly, even when the Doctor and Leela were not on screen, dude, I was entranced with every scene they were in. The diction, the syntax, the control of the voice. I mean, obviously, the costumes, they went to town on that one. The only problem with Talons of Wang Chiang was the giant fake rat. That was the only problem.
Yeah. I like that you put it that way.
Everything else was bloody brilliant. The lighting of the scenes, how close the camera would get. The cinematography was fantastic. Because most of it, as you know, I mean, they were filming it on videotape, as you say, and only on rare occasion you would get stuff on actual film or exterior shots, outdoor shots. And oh boy, when the Doctor is you have the constable at the police station being a butthead, and Tom Baker.
I can give you and the young lady a fixed abode. Very easy. What was that, sir? Oh, nothing. Get on with it.
It is. See, the odd thing is, although it is considered politically incorrect now, it's actually one of the most politically correct Doctor Who's, because they're showing the intelligence, the organization, and the capabilities of a non-Anglo culture within an Anglo culture.
Yes, very much.
And the Doctor is technically an immigrant in that culture too, if you think about it.
Yeah.
And so is Leela.
Yeah. Put our enemy to the torture. Torture, eh?
Oh.
He's Chinese.
And then we get the fantastic Phantom of the Opera face reveal.
Yes. Oh my God.
That was damn good makeup for the time, dude.
The puppy chow face.
That's not the way I'd describe it, but okay, I can roll with that. Yep. I can roll with that. But honestly, as a kid, I'm like, well, hold on, that's a bit much. And clearly, some people are not meant to do backyard do-it-yourself time travel.
No, Doctor, you were wrong. The Sigma beam was a success.
Not according to your face, dude.
Yep. I am Magnus Greel.
Your tongue says one story, your face is telling another one.
The infamous Minister of Justice. The butcher of Brisbane. The infamous Minister of Justice. Checkmate.
And obviously, if there was an interstellar Geneva Convention, a breaker of every rule, according to that story. I mean, the guy was a war criminal. They came right out and said it. That was the term they used, war criminal. And he looks it. He absolutely looks at. What a great name, Magnus Greel.
Magnus Greel.
Oh God, that just makes you're just thinking, oh God, if you heard we are sending you to a room for 12 hours alone. It is made of concrete. There are no windows. You will have an interrogation by Magnus Greel. Yeah. You're gonna crap your pants right there, just hearing the name.
They were sacrificed in the pursuit of science. They were slaughtered in your filthy machine.
Yes, and it was a filthy machine.
Yes.
And it was very claustrophobic.
Oh,
if
yeah.
you look at it, it's bloody tiny. But see, again, that's taking the science into account. You know, how big can a thing be? How small should a thing be? It just, God, the show was glorious and lovely between the 60s and the 80s. It really was.
Yes.
But also, I love the Eccleston years. I do love the Eccleston years, and most of the Tennant years, I will be honest, not a Matt Smith fan.
Yeah, well, you know what? Let's not.
Let's not.
Let's not engage that part of the spectrum tonight. But I love what I did love about the Five Doctors was the introduction of the new console. I actually saw this in Chicago when
really
they had a traveling Doctor Who experience, and they had Bessie. And they had this console. This console was a very, very, very good replica. But I love this because I grew up on, my first computer was a TI 44A, had cartridges. I had Commodores. I had the Ataris, but I loved all the buttons. I loved all the buttons that he had on this.
Yes, absolutely. And see, the glory of what you just described is that if you think about the concept, and you know this very well because of, we're not going to tell tales out of school, but your previous occupation that we talked about privately, which I'm not going to talk about publicly, but you understand that something that starts out as not art can, after only a few decades, become art. Conceptually, culturally, and philosophically. And look at the console right here. It may be sci-fi, but this is actually sculpture. It's just done in a different way. And if you look at certain designs of certain technologies, that is design art. You look at costumes, design art. So when you're describing the traveling Doctor Who Museum of Wonder and Imagination, as I would put it, which I never got to go to, it's really almost a cultural exploration of art that started out as television. And I think that's wonderful. It's not just a geek thing. It's a cultural appreciation thing. Do you agree?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, if you had $25,000 spare and they said you can get this for $25K and it was in perfect condition, but it's going to have to live in your house until you move, would you say yes?
Yes.
Right on.
I absolutely, without a doubt. Like, what the hell? It's like, it's like someone would come. It's like, what the hell is this? It's the TARDIS console. What's it doing in the living room? It's being the TARDIS console.
It's doing its job.
My mother's coming over today. What are we going to tell her? Tell her we live in a TARDIS.
Tell her not to dress like Lala Ward Romana. That's what you tell her.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I'll be honest. I hated the fucking boat hat. I hated the boating hat.
Okay. You know what? I'm not gonna disagree. I
don't dislike Lala Ward. I just thought she was a big come down from Mary Tam. That's all.
Yeah. Well, it was. What are you gonna do? It's like they would. Even Blake could only stay on his own show for 2 seasons.
That's a great point. And come back at the very end, right?
Yep.
Okay. But
here we have the Cybermen, and I love these. These are the Cybermen I loved.
Really?
Yeah. I did. I don't know. Well, hey, I'm a child of the '80s, so
okay, fair enough. All right.
And now we have the.
I actually forget I'm a bit older than you, Max, because you are. Look, I'm not sucking up. I don't give flattery. I give compliments. You're very erudite. You are like we don't want to ruin your reputation, but cultured. You are well educated, and you have expansive cultural observance abilities.
Thank you.
And so I tend to forget you're a bit younger.
Yeah.
But that is a brilliant aspect about you, and those compliments about you. Yeah, you're fun to talk to, but you know, these more, shall we say, detailed, nuanced aspects of human psychology that you are lucky to have encased in your heart and your brain are one of the main reasons I feel so honored to be here today.
Yeah, thank you, Hungry, and I'm very glad you came on today too. Like, but look at this Cyberman. I mean, okay, no. What's your opinion? I want to know. Is he too hodgepodge?
I had to be a teenager and entering my 20s in the 80s. I didn't like much of the 80s, I have to admit. I mean, I get into fights with, well, not fights, fake fights, you know, play fights with Dad about 80s stuff all the time. I can't stand the damn Go-Go's. Can't stand Bruce Springsteen. Like I'm a guy who liked Ian Astbury from The Cult. I'm a guy who liked you know, Matt Johnson. I was an alternative radio guy.
I'm a Sopranos guy, so I like Steve Van Zandt.
Right. Well, oh God, I love him. I love him. And that's the only reason I went to a Bruce Springsteen concert was to see him live.
Yep.
And so with this, it just really screams the 80s, where it's like things are getting more complicated than they need to be, and some things are getting a little wibbly wobbly in terms of the visual design. I mean, what the hell is going on with this chainmail shit on the forearm?
Yeah. Okay. No, I just noticed that too. You know, but I liked the helmet design. I liked just about everything else. Like I liked the fact that it was 80s for the 80s sake.
But see, here's a problem. In the 80s, we started, I'm not saying this is a good thing or a bad thing, but in science fiction, and you'll remember this, we started humanizing everything that didn't need to be humanized. And this was a major problem for me. In terms of
I can see that.
In terms of my enjoyment of science fiction, you know, Galactus is not a guy who ate planets because his girlfriend dumped him. All right.
Yeah.
And they started humanizing the Cybermen. And one of the things that was the most creepy about the Cybermen, and again, you haven't seen the best example of this. You haven't seen The Invasion. Okay. Their voices were as inhuman as the Daleks, possibly more so, but even more cybernetic. And the voices were chilling, absolutely made your blood run cold.
Yeah.
And there were very few human tonal inflections, if any, sometimes never. And here we're getting to the point where they're actually talking like a human villain, just slightly modulated in audio tone. And that's the aesthetic thing I'm talking about.
No, I see what you're saying. I can understand that.
I didn't mean to be a prick. I'm just, answering.
No, I get it.
Oh, Tegan in fur. Tegan looks good in fur.
I have found the ones from the TARDIS.
That's exactly my point. You did that perfectly.
Yes.
See?
Excellent.
Versus the Tomb of the Cybermen. You will be like us. You will become one of us. Yeah, Borg, we know you owe royalties to the BBC.
Yep. Excellent.
Yeah, see, again. I mean, it's like from a villain from a sword and sandals 1960s movie.
Yep. You see, Doctor, I stole this from an arcade. They were playing air hockey, and now they
That's good, Max. And I really do like Pete Davidson in this one. I have to admit, I really do.
So let me. It's like you see the cyber leader coming out from the back. Where were they hiding? Where were they hide? It's just, I know it's a little thing. It's like, where were they hiding that they couldn't see? That Tegan
7 foot tall silver guys.
Yeah. That Tegan and Susan couldn't see them until they were like 2/3 of the way down the hill.
I know.
Anyhow, just being picayune.
There was one little complaint I have here. There was a tradition with the Cybermen that would come and go. Unfortunately, it was not consistent. All right. It was, I kind of sometimes have a beef with inconsistency, but the cyber leader would either have a differently formed helmet, cybernetic head, or it would be a different color. Sometimes it was black.
Well, in this one, it's black because this is the David Banks cyber leader era.
Yeah. And I I would have liked a different formation of the head, but I appreciate there was a differentiation between the cyber leader and just the Cybermen. That was appreciated.
Oh, zapped. Cricket.
And they did
Anyone?
march information very well. The actors did a very good job, and I honestly really respect the BBC. This also applies to the Ice Warriors. They often hired sports players, not actors, to play these giant roles, and that's just smart.
Yeah, because you can direct an athlete better like that.
They know, coach, tell me how I'm supposed to run down the field. What play do I do? Just tell them physically what to do. They'll do it. And then you can add the voices and dubbing later, because Lord knows they don't have a microphone inside those helmets.
Yep. I am the master. But first, let me ask you, what did you drive here today? Because we have some really great financing offers. Kill him.
Actually, he does look a little bit like a sinister real estate agent there. But look at the plaid.
Yep.
Look at the plaid.
And I love here we have the Rastin Warrior robot.
The Vorpal Bunny from
Yes. Sweet.
You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yep. You need the hand grenade of Zion for that one.
Oh my God! Who would have thought a reject from the Cirque du Soleil could have been so bloody deadly? I did love him though. I'm making a joke. I love him.
And of course Patrick Troughton has a flare because why not? Why not? It's a galactic glitter. It's a Yeti.
And Leslie Stewart is sitting there going, "Look, Doc, I know you're going to solve this one. I know it's going to come out all right. I just need to get back to Worcestershire and have my tea.
Now we're buried alive.
I'm tired. I want my tea and my Bicky."
Yep.
And Sarah Jane, she looks so lovely there.
Oh, the silver guys are fighting the silver guys. Oh, and I love these death scenes.
Yeah, they were great. They really were. Oh, and the missing head. Oh my God. I mean, honestly, even though it's technically, I know there's still some physical body parts inside the Cybermen. This is really sort of cybernetic on cybernetic violence.
Yep. Yes, very much.
And if you take that into account, this was a pretty violent adventure for Doctor Who.
Exactly. Yes, very much. I mean, wow.
I do miss, however, the little details they added to the Cybermen. I don't think it came up before Revenge of the Cybermen. I don't think it was ever explained that gold could impair the respiratory units. I think that came up in Revenge with Tom Baker.
Yes.
But it wasn't used that much afterwards. That's a great plot point. That's a great way to get yourself.
Yeah, it wasn't even used in the Colin Baker. I think it was used in Silver Nemesis when Patrick with Sylvester McCoy. Yes. But when they had Attack of the Cybermen, they didn't use gold.
No, and they should have. And the one easy way to get around that in the script is just to say, like, the Cybermen log all information.
Yeah.
Just like the Daleks. The Cybermen,
we have improved our insulation, Doctor.
Exactly. We learned from our mistake with you in the previous conflict.
Yeah.
We will not make that mistake again.
And,
yeah.
Yeah, and I love the lasso hooks. It's like, find a foothold, find any foothold. Don't look down.
And this is a lovely set. This really is. They went to town on this one. Look at the brazier. You got like the Sumerian brazier in the background.
Yep. Must choose above, between, below.
I love a chessboard floor. Yep. I really do.
Yeah, and it really and it goes to show one of the main themes is that the Time Lords were evil devious people.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
Yeah.
talk about misusing their powers.
I mean, honestly, I don't mean to exaggerate, but when you get down behind the facade, they are a merciless race.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. I love this part. It's like, you will show me the safe path across, or I shall destroy you.
Oh my God, those pants, they're like diapers that go down to his knees.
Yeah.
But still great performances. Little nitpicks, but overall, I mean, this is at least an 8 out of 10 for me, at least.
And here they're all coming together.
The guest characters coming back and getting to meet each other. It's fantastic. I mean,
I remember
before Marvel started using the term crossover events, this is a crossover event.
Yeah. And here we see the corruption of Barusa.
Yeah, this was hard emotionally to take. I greatly admired the staging and the acting of it. I don't think it was overly theatrical. I think it was honest but very detailed and very subtextual. I mean, the facial expressions, and Peter Davidson's voice is so different to his that it creates this wonderful audio juxtaposition.
Exactly. Like you could be blind and watching it as a radio show. And we have the coronet of Rassilon, which is a new relic.
Yeah.
And it's like, and just coincidentally, it was right behind the council chambers. But hey, what are you going to do?
But also the details, like they refer to it as a coronet. Now, if you're looking at medieval crowns in England, those things were big and hulking and huge. Yeah. Okay, so I love the fact that they use the appropriate term. Like there's a difference between a rapier and a saber, you know?
Yeah.
And when Doctor Who decided we're not getting paid, so we may as well be artsy and historically accurate and put certain elements into it that other shows are not going to do. Thank goodness they did.
Yes.
And look at Trouty. Look at my darling Trouty. Oh, I love him so much.
This is the game of Rassilon.
Yeah.
You know, and we see, you know, I love he who wins shall lose, and he who loses shall win. Loved it.
And also when you're a teenager or in your early 20s looking at this, like you're fascinated by that. You know, there's a riddle there, but you're trying not too hard to think about it. Because number one, you're going to miss the next line of dialogue. But number two, you want to be surprised. You don't want to figure it out for yourself.
And what a horrible ending here for Barusa.
I agree, but I think it was dramatically necessary.
Oh yeah. Totally. It is, you know.
It was actually very nightmarish.
Yeah.
Very nightmarish. And we talked about it in high school the day afterwards. And even the geeks were getting together with the rugby guys and going, that was really messed up, you know? And it honestly was like, it was like an episode of Night Gallery they never had the guts to make in 1972.
Huh.
That moment, just that moment.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you this. In the original, you know, I obviously saw it as it was originally aired with its original. And in the original, you had TARDISes flying off in either direction, not the triangles.
Right.
And then you have this one, which is the newer effects.
Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of prefer the TARDISes, but that's just me.
Look, I've been on Jill's channel for like 5 of the Star Trek reviews, the TOS reviews, and I'm just like, I am a fuddy-duddy. I always prefer the original effects. I find it very jarring when I see what some people refer to as enhancements. I'm not going to go into the whole Star Wars thing. I'm not going to do that. I'm not even going to go into the Star Trek thing. But when it comes to Doctor Who, leave well enough alone. Just, you know, find the best original copy you can. Make a decent electronic copy so we can all enjoy it. Maybe clean up the sound a little bit. Don't add anything, because these
Yeah.
are historical anecdotes captured in moving images and sound. So it's like
I agree
it's
totally.
like it's like verbally editing a page or two from the Magna Carta. Don't do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry to sound cranky. I apologize.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you, because I remember how it was on the show. So
But, I will, because I have to be open-minded. Even though I don't like being open-minded, I have to. It's just it's an obligation.
yes.
I will say that we must remember that, number one, a lot of this was shot on video.
Mhm.
It was also shot on video intended for cathode ray tubes.
Yes.
And therefore they designed a lot of the stuff to only be seen on an old classic television. And therefore, like, a lot of youngins can't handle that look. I get it. But I can't handle what they like looking at.
Don't get me started.
Yeah. I mean, look, we're not going to open a can of worms, but I mean, I was getting a massive headache when I went to see the first two Hobbit movies in the theater.
Well, yeah, there was also a frame rate issue there, so
that was a major part of it. That was bugging the hell out of my eyes. But it was because they were trying to do the fake 3D thing. It was very glaring.
Yeah.
And so I'll be honest, I waited to see the final film, the third film. I waited till the DVD came out in 2D, not 3D, and that's how I saw it. And I enjoyed the film a lot better.
I can totally understand that. Totally. So,
where are we at now? Where are we going?
We are at the Fiend.
Oh, we're at the finale.
Yeah, I mean, we I didn't have I think the closing credits got, he is once again called to response. The doctor is once again called to responsibility, and he's like, You know what, I'm gonna go run my TARDIS for a little bit. Bye. You're gonna go on the run from your people in a rickety old TARDIS? Why not? That's how it all started.
Exactly how it all started. It is not a snake eating its own tail. It is the completion of the circle.
Yes.
And that is, and a circle is often circles and triangles are a large part of imagery in Doctor Who. So when they did the circle, I loved it. I really loved it. And there was a lot of both classical but also created for the show symbology and things that became symbol. I mean, the circles in the walls of the TARDIS, that gets impregnated into your subconscious,
Yep, the roundels. Yes.
Love them. And look, I don't mean to sound crass, but after 1978, none of us looked at a scarf in the same way.
No, we didn't.
Or a big, floppy, broad-brimmed hat,
Yep.
And it was or an oversized coat for a 5'7" man playing a recorder. Oh, thank you, Troughton. God. And I love the fact when they brought Troughton back, he kept the recorder and he did his little,
Yep.
It's just such a wonderful show. Such a wealth of storytelling, ideas, philosophies, real villains, anti-heroes, and people who wanted to be heroes who were forced to be villains. Poor old Turlough,
Yes. No, totally. 100%. I just want to say thank you to the chat. We had FKHC 2005. We had Snortapoopus, Scotty R37.
Yes.
We also had Suzanne, who came over from Tony Stark's for a bit, and I think we'll go over there. We had DJ Play Nice. We had King Dolphin TV and Mars Monkey Max. And Taylor Swift, greater than Disney, Star Wars, MCU, and modern Doctor Who. I know. And Dad Man Walking, and
Yes.
a Polynesian Minion, and the Truck Dog were here.
Indeed.
And well, the advantage of having such a small audience, you don't have to you don't have to thank that many people.
Or like our friend, God rest his soul, you don't have to have a little pad of post-it notes and write all the names down as they
Well,
come
I can
in.
see why. I mean, hey, look, it kind of reminds me of the way my dad used to be. It's like my dad would write down a number on. It's like I don't know how the newspapers are in. It's like you have like the newspaper with sections. And back in the day, there'd be like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 sections, especially on Sunday. But he would write something down on a piece on a newspaper. That section would become an archival document to him.
Right. So. Right. Look, we had the Sunday Telly. So our choices were the Sunday Telly, the Telegraph, or the Herald. Okay. Yeah. So depending on what you wanted, one newspaper would focus more on certain things and the other newspaper would focus on another thing. But during some years when I was in the 80s, when I was in the United States, before I went back to Australia, then went back to the United States, I fell in love with the Oakland Tribune. Can you guess why?
The comics?
No.
Go. Okay.
They had Joe Bob Briggs's articles in them.
Oh, okay. I was going to say either an artist or a columnist.
A columnist, Joe Bob Briggs, one of the greatest proponents of the brilliance of Roger Corman, exploitation horror, science fiction films, basically exploitation films, but the drive-in theater. He's the one that basically helped revitalize interest in drive-in theaters. And so the articles used to be called Joe Bob at the Drive-In. And, cool. And he would rate things according to the way people, I'll say this in a polite way, met their demise in the movies. He would rate things as to how many times you might see an area of female anatomy unclothed, and he would rate the various foos: spoon foo, tongue foo, pitchfork foo, spaghetti being forced down the throat till somebody chokes foo. And it was hilarious as a teenager reading someone being this absolutely irreverent as a real film critic. And then he would give it a rating, like 1 to 4 stars. Joe Bob gives it 3 stars. Check it out.
Okay. What was his name?
His stage name is Joe Bob Briggs. Okay. His real name, and he is an actual Southerner. He doesn't fake it, and he refers to himself as a Texas boy. He's lived outside of Texas, but he's also lived in Arkansas and other places. But his real name is John Bloom. But if you want to see him on, if you want to check him out on the IMDb, it's Joe, spelled the normal way it is. Bob, spelled the normal way it is. Briggs.
Okay, I'll check it out.
He's got a show on Shudder too.
Okay.
The Last Drive-In, and they will do marathons. And see, once he got off TNT, he was on TNT for years, more than a decade. But he kept referring to the almighty high sheriffs, not letting me say what I want to say or show what I want to show.
Was he doing like TNT After Dark?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I know who you're talking about. He had
Rhonda Shear on his show. Oh my God. Hubba hubba. Rhonda Shear. Dear God. Oh, that woman. Still magnificent. And he's had her on as a guest several times in the past 5 years.
Okay. Just because I don't remember a face, or just because I don't remember a face, or it doesn't mean I don't remember a name, or vice versa.
Right. But he would often have really great guests on. He had Clint Howard on. Now, if you're a Star Trek fan, you got to know Clint Howard.
Okay.
You want to forget him, but you can't.
No. What would he do? Oh, tell me what he did.
This is what we call Trana. Enjoy. He was a kid playing a tiny alien. They didn't want to hire. Yeah. They did not want to hire a dwarf.
Corbomite. Was that Corbomite maneuver?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
One of my favorite episodes of television of all time. And look, I even like Clint Howard in his villainous role as the Ice Cream Man, which Joe Bob has covered. But basically about a guy who sells ice cream who's also a serial killer.
Yep.
Right up your alley, Max.
Well,
I'm kidding.
I mean, come on. I mean, if you're going to be doing stuff with, stuff in the freezer, so.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was kind of killing two birds with one stone, pun intended. So, but it was a wacky and wild movie. Clint's been in a lot of things. I do really like Clint Howard. Actually, I know he's really strange to look at. I get that. But I love his acting ability. I love his attitude. He's never been mean to any other co-star since he was a kid. And that's over 6 years. There's nothing on record of him ever being even terse, much less rude to anybody. And he loves the genre, man. He'll do the genre stuff. He's done 4 horror films. He's done numerous.
I remember him in Austin Powers. It's the My God, dude. He's back. Not really, sir. The big boy's always been the big boy's always been here.
Right. So, I mean, Clint Howard's great. And Joe Bob, he does love the character actors, and he loves what I refer to as, you'd understand this, the character directors. The directors only do the weird and wild and wonky stuff.
Yeah.
And he's a bastion of that stuff. He's the bastion of stuff that Hollywood doesn't want to look at. He's a bastion of trauma. He's a bastion of Hammer horror films. He's a bastion of, the first Suspiria movie, a lot. Second Suspiria movie, not so much. Understandable. And all the Barbarian movies, remember the bad Conan ripoffs from the 1980s?
Yep.
Massive fan of those. I mean, honestly, it's a wealth of material. He is a wit. He's a legend. He's erudite when he wants to let the facade fall because he's a journalist, man. He knows words. And I'm not trying to push him on you. I'm just saying you can't find anything else to watch on a weekend.
No, but it's like you go over his filmography. It's like, I saw. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And he's friends with some amazing people, but also he's friends with some gorgeous women. That never hurts. I'm sorry, it never hurts. And he's not ashamed of it either. And back when he was on TNT, man, he used to get in trouble with the CNT censors. That's Turner, by the way, Ted Turner. So people don't know Ted Turner, who started colorizing old classic science fiction films like them. Dag nabbit. That pissed me off. But the as he would say, the high sheriffs at Turner. He would always be flirting with the mail girl, and he had 4 different mail girls. They'd come in, and then this is before political correctness really went apeshit. This is like in the late 80s, early 90s. The mail girl would be sexy and wonderful. He'd flirt. They would completely shut him down. But it wasn't a politically correct shutting down. This was you and I at the pub messing with somebody 5 rungs up the ladder from us, shutting them down. You've been through that with women. I know you have.
Yep.
So it's just honest and funny, and then they try to then Joe Bob gets his own bite because the male girls would try to elevate the intellectual side of the discussion. Joe Bob would just, man, he was a lawnmower on their grass, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And it was always a visual delight. It really was. The ads were fucking terrible. Oh, I should have sworn. I apologize.
That's okay.
The ads were bloody terrible, though, and that's what's great about the Shudder thing. They take breaks, right?
Yeah.
But it's not for ads. It's for the guest sequences.
Wow. TV's gone downhill.
Amazing. I mean, Linnea Quigley. He's had Linnea Quigley on. He's had people from Britain on. I mean, the guy is just a magnet for talent. It's just naughty talent.
Hey, what are you going to do?
What's the complaint about? Right?
Yep.
Where's the harm? Where's the harm? There's no harm. There's just joy. There's just humor. And sometimes there's cleavage.
Yep.
So,
sir.
Are we going to wrap up now?
Yeah, we got to wrap up. I have a meeting with someone in 20 minutes, but Wow. Thank
damn
you.
it, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
No.
Keep going.
No. It's all good. It's all good. That's why we're coming in for a landing now.
Okay. All right.
We've thanked the chat. I'm going to be on next week doing this, another drone video, and I don't know what else I'll do. We'll see. I'll figure something out.
Right on.
I was able to figure something out today.
Yeah, dude, look, just before we go, very, very well done on all the slides. I'm very impressed with that.
Well, I have been, as a classically trained photographer, I have really been trying to push myself into video. So
yeah, I get you.
So yeah. And what are you doing this week?
Aside from trying to sleep, I might be doing something with Dad Man that tends to be spontaneous.
Mm-hmm.
I told people I was going to be on your show. I did get invited on to Raymond's today, but it was at the same time. I couldn't do it. I committed to you 2 weeks ago. So, if it's a commitment, particularly for an established topic, unless I am at death's door, I tend to be there. Right.
And we appreciate you being here.
Well, thank you very much. And I honestly, I don't know what else is going on this week, but that could just be the insomnia making me forget.
Fair enough.
That's what Twitter DMs are for. People remind you.
Yep.
And I did really appreciate your schematic. I did appreciate the schedule schematic. That was very kind of you. You didn't have to take the time to do that.
Well, that was
I had in order,
Yeah, exactly. All right.
But just
we're gonna wrap up the stream. We're gonna say goodbye, and we'll hang out in the back.
Okay, but just so people know, look, everybody and their mother can do slides, but that doesn't mean they know which still frame to choose as a slide. And you chose magnificent and well considered stills for the slides today. And as an illustrator, I really thank you for that.
Oh, thank you. All right. Good night, everyone, and we'll see you next time.
Nighty-o, folks.